am just so grateful to each of you for your support and love. You know, I love all of you. And I'm so honored that you would take this time to connect and to be a part of this campaign, 21 Days of Happy. We just felt like now, you know, we've heard all the news and we've heard all the craziness and we know, right? But being able to do something to inspire joy and happiness in its various forms was something that was really important to us. So we just appreciate you participating. Now I will start. I'll begin with you, Sherry. Sherry, you are an incredibly accomplished comedian, incredibly accomplished actress, both in comedy and drama, I might add. You have received nominations. Can you tell us about those? And you've just really had an incredible career. I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
I feel very blessed, I guess, especially because I just hit my 53rd birthday like 3 days ago.
I was gonna say I see a birthday balloon in the background
and my Christmas tree. I still haven't taken down my Christmas tree. You know, I'm just in a really state of just being grateful and being thankful for the little things. You know, it's not so much my career, it's just because I have my health, because I have a 15-year-old in the next room and I didn't have 15 like my cousins. Yeah, he turned 15, Alfred. Because when I did Beauty Shop with you, I had gotten pregnant 2 weeks later when I did Beauty Shop. That was 15 years ago. Can you believe it? And so, you know, I have a son who just like, he's all I got and I'm all he's got. And so I'm so thankful be here. I'm thankful that people still want to see me, make them laugh, and you know, all the little bumps along the way. I'm thankful.
Yes, I certainly hear that, and we're definitely going to get more into that. Queen Alfre, you have received 18 Emmy nominations. Is that right?
I think so.
Oh my gosh.
Girl, all you gotta do is keep living. Keep living and keep showing up. Something's gonna happen.
This is in addition to Oscar nomination. I mean, this woman.
Yeah.
Alfre, you've been in the business now for how long?
I as you see, I'm not good at technology and I really don't do numbers, but I think probably 47 years, something like that, professionally.
Yeah.
And did you start when you were 2?
Not as a baby. No, I earned all of these years.
So what was, like, how old were you when you got started? How did you get started? Like, what was that process as far as you kind of entering into show business?
Well, you know, I discovered that I was a storyteller. I was an activist first when I was probably around 14. Then I discovered within a year or two that the power of the moving image. And so all of that was happening at the same time. Y'all have to remember, I came up like I came of age. I was in high school when Malcolm, Medgar, Bobby, Martin, everybody, it was like all those things that we say we believe as people and as a country, and the things that have stood us up and kept our people insisting and going forward, it just went away in gun blast. It was like, wait, you can just assassinate somebody. And so it was that time where people were in the streets trying to stop the war. It was just all hell broke loose. And so what a time to discover the power of storytelling, because guns don't solve anything. You can't wipe out ignorance or your opposition. So that means we are tasked with finding ways to change them, to change their hearts and minds. So, you know, so that's how I got in that. I went away to train. If I had known what, like this was a meat market and it was kind of organized crime, I don't know if I would have brought my gifts into this arena.
Ooh,
But you
Mm.
know what? It has forced me deeper spiritually, and I've had a wonderful life of learning lessons, growing, and yeah. So that's kind of where I am. When I
wow.
say just keep living, that's the truth. Is everything about our forward motion says no. So obviously, we are the people that don't pay attention to no, because we yield from people who didn't pay attention to no. So keep showing up, keep your desire, and keep your motives. Try to purify your motives as much as possible each day, and then keep showing up. Not expecting
Okay.
the outcome, but knowing that you're part of the continuum.
Mm.
That's so deep. I'm definitely going to come back to some of the stuff you just said. We definitely have to talk about some of that stuff today. Essence, I'd love to. Obviously, you've been gracing television screens for years as well.
Yeah.
Do you mind
Yeah.
just sharing a little bit about your career?
I mean, my career started on accident. I much like Alfred, when I was a child, my environment was very tumultuous, and so I was an only child, and I would escape to my room, to stories, to books. I was a very voracious reader as a kid, and I really thought my aspirations as a very young child were to be a state senator.
Ah,
And then ultimately I discovered ballet, and I loved the discipline of dance. I loved how strong I felt. I loved how big I felt, because I was a very small little girl. I mean, I'm still a small little woman, but as a little girl, I was just tiny. And so there was something about, but I had hops, as the guys like to say. I could jump, and I like to take up space. And so for me, when I danced, that was a way for me to kind of be bigger. And I loved it, and I loved the discipline of it, and trying to master something using my whole entire being. But it was interesting. I never really thought about acting. I mean, I've talked about how my very first audition was was for the Cosby Show, and I ended up booking the role. So, but I really didn't know what I was doing. But I kind of want to go back, because even before that, in second grade, the school that I belonged to, they had an accelerated kids program, right, for smart kids, and I was a part of that program. But I was in this. My teacher's name was Mrs. Brumborg, and every year she would throw a play. She would put on a production of a play for the entire school, and everyone would assemble in the auditorium, and as a student body we'd watch this play. And in first grade, I remember praying this silent prayer of wanting to be in Mrs. Brumborg's class so I could be a part of the following year's production. And I ended up being in her class, and we ended up doing the production of Peter Pan. But we all had to audition for various roles, and I was a bit of a teacher's pet. So while I was cleaning the chalkboard one day, I asked Mrs. Brumborg, I said, so, what are my chances of playing Peter? Because the kind of obvious one that I put at the top of my list, because we were all supposed to put our top 5 characters, was Tiger Lily. I was like, I'm probably going to be Tiger Lily. That works. I was one of like 2 brown girls in the whole class. But I put down Peter just kind of as a long shot. And I said, so what are my odds, Mrs. Brumborg? And she said, well, you read really well, and you have a very pretty voice, but you're so quiet. You speak, and you're so soft spoken that it's hard to hear you. So she goes, I'm going to have another audition in a couple of weeks, and we'll see. Girl, I went home and I practiced for weeks, singing and talking and speaking up and projecting, by myself, my little 7-year-old self. Anyway, long story short, I ended up being cast as Peter. But, and there was a little girl in the school, in my class, named Eden Kellner, who looked like Sandy Duncan, who had played Peter Pan on Broadway. So I thought, it was such a long shot. And when I got cast as Peter, I was so excited. But the thing that I remember most about it was the responsibility I felt to exceed everyone's expectations because I wasn't the likely choice, because I wasn't the obvious Peter Pan. So when we ended up going to the auditorium for the first time to rehearse in the actual space, the classroom, outside of the classroom, I went up on the stage. Mrs. Brumborg said, we're getting ready to rehearse. And I went up on the stage and she goes, Essence, you need your script and you need your music sheet. And I said, no, I don't. And she goes, you don't need your script? You don't? I said, no. I said, I've memorized everything. And she went, what? I said, I've memorized everything. She goes, you know all your lines and all the songs? I said, yes. And she stopped everyone and she was like, Essence has the biggest role and she has already memorized all of her lines.
This was meant to be. This was your destiny from a very young child.
But I didn't know. Like I was thinking I was going to be Misty Copeland before Misty Copeland. Like I wasn't thinking I was going to be an actress. I just felt such an immense, I just felt the blessing of having been given an opportunity and wanting to do it well and wanting to be the best I could possibly be. And the pressure also of being brown, being Black, and knowing that I was a minority in this space and I was the minority of what the expectation was, and just feeling like wanting to make sure that everyone knew that just because I was this little brown girl who had been cast as Peter, that I could do a great job.
That's so good. That's so good. Wow. Thank you, Essence. And how about you, Kenny? I mean, you're an incredibly worldwide successful musician, singer,
brilliant
writer,
producer.
Your career has just spanned so many years too, and just such beautiful music. Can you talk a little bit about your career?
Been in the music industry. I think that this year is my 30th year. And I started I got my first major record deal in 1987 with the release in 88. So yeah, actually, no, I'm over 30 years. Wow. Okay. So I'm not doing great with numbers either today. So, but what I'm so inspired about just in listening to each person's story is how you guys went a little deeper. You went into something that really talks about why you got into the career on a much deeper level. So I'm going to try to give you something that I don't usually talk about. But what I know about me is, okay, very early in my life, about 5 years old, I had a incident as a child. And a lot of children have unfortunate things that happen to them, or they're taken advantage of, or there's different types of issues. What it did to me is it altered what I believe would have been my natural personality. I ended up being deathly shy and introverted. And music brought me out of that. It was like a saving grace for me. Music was something that was normal. It was in my family. My mother sang, father could sing, grandfather played piano, grandmother played, it was that kind of thing. So that was natural. But I was the kind of kid that would sit in the corner and just sing all day and listen to music or what have you. And in doing that, I like created my own world. Like some people, go and they say, oh, I have an imaginary friend, or I have a this, or, that normalizes whatever they're going through. Music was that for me. I sang in little choirs and stuff through elementary school. And eventually my mother overheard me because I was so quiet. I was so quiet that some of my mother's friends used to think I was a deaf mute. And I'm not even joking. So one day my mother heard me singing and she said, do you want to take voice lessons? I was about 12 by then. And I was like, whatever voice lessons is, it's okay. As long as I'm not in trouble for anything. Yeah, I'll take some voice lessons. And it just began to build confidence in me, where by the time I was 14, my mother asked me, what do you want to do with your life? And I was like, at 14? I was like, well, but my mom was a visionary. And she said, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to tell me what you are doing 5 years from now, whatever. So I closed my eyes and I started thinking about performing. And I said, wow, I'm performing on a stage. And she said, where? I thought of the biggest place that I could. I'm from DC. I thought the Capitol Center. That's it. So you know it. I said, I'm at the Capitol Center. She said, what are you wearing?
Ooh.
I was like, I'm wearing like, for whatever reason, it was like a white and a baby blue or something. How many people are in the room? Who do you see? I mean, she took me through this whole thing and I was like, but I could see it. By the time I performed at the Capitol Center, wearing my baby blue, I was in high school graduating and I was singing the commencement song to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. But it took years. I'm kind of taking you through like 2 years at a time, 4 years at a time. It took years of shedding self-image or whatever that was, that shyness, not allowing the very beginnings of trauma in my life be dragged into my career, but instead using the music to be a release. And that's where it all began. Hopefully, I don't want to keep looking. I want to hear what you all have to say more. But that's where the real, true beginning and respect for music began for me. And I was doing some theater and some acting and all that too. I didn't study as much as I should have, probably, because if I had studied, I'd probably be really, really good.
It's not too late.
It's not too late. I think I'm a pretty good actor. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
We wouldn't be able to handle you if you were any better.
Thank you. So
God, and can sing and lead a man.
Right.
I just love that. I mean, I definitely feel like one through line that I'm hearing with each of you was just the pureness of your intention as far as coming into this expression, that it didn't even sound like, okay, I'm going to be in a business and I'm going to do this and that and I'm going to get this and that. It sounds like each of you had a gift that you started to see and feel, and you had a why, right? Whether it's you, Alfred, and all the societal things that was happening, or, you know, whether it was you, Kenny, as far as like overcoming trauma. There were these different things that all of us really tapped into that brought us into our voice, right? And into our gift. And so I wonder, for all of you, when was that time of shifting? Like, what was your big break, so to speak? What happened when you went from, I'm just doing this for the love of it, to, oh my gosh, I'm getting paid for it and people know who I am now, and this is a different reality than it was when I started? I'll start with you, Sherry.
Oh gosh. I can't answer that question. I know that when I decided I was a legal secretary and I had garnishes on my check, I had been to jail, my car had been repossessed numerous times, I had been on the streets, staying on people's couches, and I just remembered that I asked the secretary, I was so depressed at the time because I knew that this couldn't be all that there was to life. And family members that I was taking care of, very close to me, in and out of jail on drugs. I'm trying to take care of everybody. And I remember saying to the other secretaries, you guys want to go to the Comedy Store? And I got a group of about 11 legal secretaries together, and we went to Sizzlers and we had the all-you-can-eat shrimp and garlic toast. And then we went to the Comedy Store, and I remember I stood there underneath the main room. There's a main room sign on Sunset Boulevard, and I just said, wow, this must be fun, doing comedy and making people laugh. And as we were sitting there, I was so excited because I didn't have a car. I just went home, whoever couch I could stay on at night. So it was just really cool to be at this comedy club. And before the show started, for some reason I was making people laugh around me. And then the comics got on stage, Tamayo Atsuki and a guy named Eddie Griffin got on stage. And he was telling jokes, and I just looked at everybody moving forward and moving backwards. And I said, that's so cool that you could take a story and make it so relatable that you're making the crowd move as one with laughter. And then a guy named Andrew Dice Clay got up, and he closed.
Oh.
And at the time, Andrew was doing these jokes, hickory dickory dock. Your mouth is on my, you know, and he offended all of the women at the comedy club. And one woman turned around and said to me as women were booing, she said, "You're as funny as him. Why don't you get on that stage?" And it just shows you the power of your tongue, the power of your words, because that was the impetus. That planted a seed. You can either plant seeds of good in somebody or evil. I'm very spiritual. And that planted a seed in me of, could I do that? And afterwards, I had to take the bus home because all the secretaries were there. And I saw Eddie and Andrew Dice Clay standing there. And I went up to them, and I was so shy. And I said, "Do you think I could do that?" And Eddie was smoking, and he said, "Yeah." And I said, "How do I?" And he said, "You just do it." And I said, "But I'm scared." And I'll never forget, Eddie Griffin said to me, "Do it scared." And that's literally been my mantra for life.
Wow.
I went and took comedy classes, and I took the bus to go 2 hours to these comedy clubs, and I would get home at 2 in the morning, and, you know, and it was exhausting and tiring. And I'd be in clubs with, I remember being in a club, and I was there all night long, and it was only 3 people, and I was there all night long, and I was the last comic, and I went to go up, and somebody named Marlon and Sean Wayans walked in the club, and they did a whole hour, and I was like, the bus has stopped running from Norwalk. And they did a whole hour, and there was only 1 person left, and the lady said, "We got to close the club." And I said, "But I've been here for like 3 hours. Could I just go up?" And that had always been my life. And literally had to walk home. I thumbed a ride home. That's terrible. Don't do that. But I had to get a ride home because the buses had stopped running from Norwalk.
Wow.
And I didn't have a way to get home. I still need to tell Sean and Marlon that they made me miss my spot. And, but that has always been my mantra. So I guess, you know, when I'm doing things now, I think back to that and go, gosh, if somebody hadn't planted that seed in my life of saying you could do that,
That's
I don't know where I would be. So that's probably when I you know, I can't think of a specific example, Edwina, when I went, I finally, it's just when I'm on a set and I go, gosh, where did you come from? When you had no car, no place to live, I'm in your way, you know, I took a lot of rides because I didn't have a car. So that's what I think about, of the you know, these little moments.
Right. Wow. Wow. That's incredible. Whew. I felt myself getting a little teary.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, Kenny,
And Sherry, I just
Yeah.
sort of, my mind popped into watching you drive away from the set of Beauty Shop in that fabulous, that was the first time those Lexus with the drop top were out. It was like, I still haven't had a car that hot, but look at you.
I still got that car.
You earned that car, and you deserve that car. And I mean, it's a material thing, but it is emblematic of the blessings and the protection you had all the way through the things that the walk you were walking.
Amen.
Wow. Now, Queen Alfre, what about you?
Don't call me Queen.
I know, I can't not call. I've been calling you that for years.
I know, and
I've been calling her that for years. I cannot stop calling you.
It's kind of like,
It's because
one of those ghetto names, like calling a little boy Emperor. Come on over here, Emperor Jamal.
Hey, that's my son's name. Watch it.
Oh, no. I'll tell you a story. My son, this is off the track, but my son's name is Duncan Hugh McGlashan Spencer. He said to me when he was 8, he said, "I want to change my name." I said, "To what?" He goes, "Why couldn't I be named something like Jamal?" And I said, you can be called Jamal. So for like 2 years, we called Duncan Jamal, because it was like, you know what, you read a little brother and you give them what they need. And he was like, I don't want to be Duncan McGlash and Smith. I want to be Jamal.
Now, Alfre, what would you say? Like, what's your memory of, okay, now's the time when things have shifted in my life and career? Like, I was maybe in obscure time and suddenly came into a place of prominence.
There is no demarcation, because I came into the business, and I came into my public craft at a period where the things you didn't automatically give you the dividends that, say, somebody from the dominant culture got. So I am still waiting for that to happen, believe it or not. Well, I'm not waiting for it. It just hasn't happened. Like I said, your everydays and your moments, they make up your life. So you just have to sort of command the quality of your moments, because before you know it, it'll be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And so you have to be in charge of how those days felt, because otherwise you've given them away if you're depending on something to happen that, that you give all your power away and you spend the time. So again, if I had had the opportunity that my Caucasian sisters had, and the after effect, who knows what I would have been doing, but it didn't happen that way. So again, I'd have to say, why do I do this a lot? Do I do it for particular person's recognition and admiration? Do I do it for particular people? Why am I doing this? Which we have to ask ourselves that, whether we're working at the insurance office or wherever, whatever our discipline is.
Right.
And you keep, when I said it takes you deeper spiritually, you got to find a way. If it makes you uncomfortable when you realize, oh wait, that's not why I don't feel good in myself, in my soul. So how do I keep adjusting daily or weekly, however, whenever you have time, to feel comfortable, to feel at peace in my soul? And it's not like these big sort of goal post or a morality or whatever you want to call it, or ethics. It's just like, do I feel comfortable in my pants? Do I feel like I got sand in my bathing suit? And so you just want to keep finding that. I think it's a matter of, when we're quiet, we know when it's right for us. And so that thing that seemed like a hindrance gave me a very adventurous time, popping from medium to medium, and I realized early on, because there's always a blessing in it. So you stop and go like, okay, this isn't happening, this isn't happening, this isn't happening. Where it's happened for Merrill and, Joan, Sigourney, whoever you want to say. So it's like, okay, the blessing in this. Oh, I can be on TV too. Oh, I can do a radio play. Oh, they're doing a reading of, Clytemnestra down at the Venice Boardwalk. So you get to have, act, and will travel. If you're bringing your gifts to the healing of your community and of the nation, it doesn't mean it doesn't feel good to you. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But you take it where you can, if the point is to tell stories, if the point is to sort of lift the tribe up, you take it wherever the tribe is listening. And so I've never been, I've done some wacky stuff too, but I've never been bored. because if, you know, when I set out, I was like, oh, film, that's what I do. I'm gonna have a film career. I'm a film actor. But if you look at that, I was in the Brave Little Toaster. If you look at my filmography, everything is there, but it has given my life quality, texture and depth and adventure. And adventure, you get your legs scraped up along the way, but you have a good time doing it. And every time you look down, you go like, oh yeah. I remember when, you know, we had to all pick up the equipment and run in different directions when the police came because we didn't have any permits.
You know, one thing that I love about just listening to you all is that from the outside, I think a lot of people would look at everybody on this panel and say, oh my gosh, that person is rich and that person is famous. And we're in this social media culture, right, where now things are quantified every day. How many followers you have, how many tweets, retweets, and shares, and how many, you know, just all these different things. It doesn't stop, right? How many views, all these things. So now it went from just kind of having an intention of sharing to it being quantified right in front of your face every single day. And now a lot of people that are coming up, whether it's wanting to be in the entertainment industry or whether it's to do something else, for many people now, prominence is attached to the motivation.
Yes.
Not just, I have a gift, I want to share it, but there's this idea in our culture that if I can be prominent, if I can be rich, if I can be successful, if people can know my name, if I can get a lot of followers, then I will be happy. Then I will be fulfilled. Then I will experience joy. And that's all a part of, you know, kind of why I wanted to bring us together too, to say that many of us have experienced what folks are in line waiting to do and hoping to do. But then the question is, does that actually manifest happiness? Does that manifest joy? Because I know when I first came out of college and I studied theater at NYU and all of that, and I was thinking, if I could just get my equity card, if I could just get an agent, if I could just get a co-star role, a guest star role, a recurring role, can I be a series regular? You know, but then it was like, God started checking me, because the more relationships I developed with people who were further along, it's like, well, they're series regulars, but they're not happy. Or, okay, well, because now they want to produce. All right, I get it. Now they're producing, but that doesn't seem to be what's bringing their happiness, you know? And so the revelation that I got was that there's a great myth of there, right? There's this idea that if I can only get there, it will manifest a certain happiness and fulfillment in my life. But I feel like what I'm hearing from you all, and I definitely want to hear deeper, is that even experiencing these elements of worldly success, that doesn't necessarily bring happiness attached to it.
Can I say one thing? Because it involves essence. About that, you know, it's so funny how from the outside people see, you know, they see what they want and they see it through their filter. And I've gotten to this lovely age where I just treasure relationships and I treasure my friendships, because at the end of the day, the nominations, the awards are sitting on the mantle, they're gonna go with the dust. But I remember when I was going through a very painful divorce, number 2, and I was in court, and it was so awful, and I was by myself, and he had a legion of people with him, and I just was crying. And I remember court reporters and everyone was going, oh my God, Sherry Shepherd, what are you doing here, Sherry Shepherd? That meant nothing to me. In the midst of going through a custody battle of my son, fighting with this ex-husband, and I remember getting a text from Edwina, because I couldn't talk on the phone, and the text was a Bible scripture. I don't know if you remember sending that to me, Essence. It was a Bible scripture because and I'm going to get so teary-eyed. I didn't know how I was going to make it in this courtroom with everybody who was coming against me. And I was by myself, just me and my attorney. And I looked at my phone, and it was this text from Essence of like a peace be still. Like, God has got you. And I held on to that through the entire half afternoon I was there. Through the tears, I kept reading this girl's scripture. And it had nothing to do with Essence being on the TV show, a movie, or me. It was just two women who had connected through some circumstances that were similar and holding each other up. Because I was hanging on by the skin of my teeth. That's where a sister stepped in to undergird me so that I wouldn't fall. And that's what this is about to me. You know, you can look and see all the trappings. If I take this stuff off right now, my hair, the makeup, the lashes, it's still about that sisterhood that keeps me going. I'm done.
So good, Sherry. Thank you. Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Essence, is there anything you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I just concur. I've seen the same thing, you know. I've seen people literally achieve the list of things that they wanted to achieve from a success standpoint, like literally check the box of everything that they had desired, and still at the end of the day they were empty and they were unfulfilled and they weren't happy, and they turned to really dark things to try and supplement what they were missing. And I mean, I think we've all had access and proximity to people where we've seen this happen. We've seen them be at the pinnacle of the theirs that we were aspiring to, right, when we started. And they actually achieve it, and it's so vapid and empty. And there is no joy, even though there's all of this stuff, even though there's all of these accolades, even though there's all this money and access. And what I have learned is that my happiness quotient has nothing to do with my circumstance and everything to do with my gratitude and everything to do with my identity and being clear about who I am and whose I am and what my purpose is. And I mean, you know, as far as how I look at it, I know that I have talents and I have gifts, but ultimately my purpose is to be of service. And you can be of service all the time. Because, I mean, you know, they've done, just as an analysis, they've done statistics, they've done studies where it is proven that if someone is suicidal and you smile at them and they feel seen, that it'll make them recalibrate or hesitate carrying out the act of taking their life. So if you move through the world with the knowledge that just a smile could potentially change the trajectory, and just letting someone know, like, sincerely that you see them and you acknowledge them and there's kindness behind it, that you could potentially save a life in that moment, then you can always be of service, which means you can always have a sense of fulfillment, which means you can always have a quotient of and a portion of joy. And when it is about the stuff that you're seeking, because don't get me wrong, I am definitely, I mean, as the story I told earlier of wanting to be a great Peter Pan, right, at 7, I am a person who likes to rise. I like to surpass expectations. There is a part of me that is very driven and competitive, not with others, but what it is I'm capable of. You know, I very much relate to Sherry's story about do it scared. I'm scared all the time. I just don't let it stop me. But what I have learned about the happiness quotient is that it really is within our grasp. The joy is always within our grasp because it's really a matter of perspective. It's really a matter of calibration. It's really a matter of not making it about having what you want, but about serving those around you, and remembering to have grace with yourself and others. Like, those are the things that it's always accessible. You always can have that at your fingertips. And that really has been, when I remember those things, when I'm present in those things, when I'm rooted in those things, my happiness is always quite high. My joy and my fulfillment is always quite high. And it overflows, and other people, it becomes contagious, you know. And I think that, and it's never really about the jobs that I've had. I've been blessed with many jobs and working with great people, and then I've had some experiences that were uncomfortable, and even unpleasant, but I find that it's funny. I worked on a show, and at the time my executive producer and I really were not getting along, and he was very mean to me, and I maintained my dignity, I maintained my excellence, I maintained my kindness, and I maintained a positive attitude. And I don't know, 3-4 years later, we connected on social media, and he was like, I thought you were mad at me. And I said, oh, I was, but you know, I'm not holding on to that. I was like, that doesn't do anyone any good. And so he asked if we could meet for lunch, and we went to lunch, and he started crying at the lunch, and identified and apologized and really repented for his behavior. And I never knew that it would ever come to that, but I just talk about the power of like maintaining your own calibration. And again, going back to what Alfre said, of not relying on other people to influence you to the point where you are at their whim, because that's a recipe for disaster. Waiting to be affirmed from the outside world, particularly as brown people. I mean, I'm not gonna sidestep that. You know, I love my Caucasian brothers and sisters. I have family that are Caucasian, so it's not a slight, and I have love for everybody, but I do understand the world that we live in, particularly now in this country and at this time. Like, we're not living in an equal place. We're not living with the same access, as Alfre's career demonstrates, where her counterparts that are Caucasian are compared to where she is, and how it's been, you know, the dividends, as she referred to them, right? But I think that it's so important that we continue to harvest our own sense of accomplishment, and harvest our own joy. Like, you have to be the tiller of your own crops.
That's so good, Essence.
Wow.
Kenny, do you want to hop in here?
Wow. Well, I'll be brief. I love this conversation because it really speaks to the depth of who each person on this call is. A lot of times we as men, I don't know, maybe women do this as well, but we identify ourselves with our career as in, my career is who I am.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
When it isn't. It's something that we do. It's an opportunity we have, or what have you. And when we look at it as such, I think that it can become other things for us. And but I think about there were times when I felt up and I felt down, like Sherry was talking about, all in one moment. I remember being in South Africa, and I was singing for Nelson Mandela's 80th birthday. And then hours later, I was in another country, and those people didn't know me from Adam. Boom, get out the way. What? You know, who are you? And you're just like, I was just a king a minute ago. What? You know? That's what it felt like, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think God has allowed each of us to experience things because his call on our lives is to ministry and servanthood. And there was a time, and Sherry, I can tell you, one of the best times in my life, Sherry, was serving at Hope's House. It just was.
You were my Sunday school teacher.
Yeah, I started out as an administrator of a ministry. And it's interesting because when it's time to go, when God has called you to whatever, I loved it so much that I probably would never have left.
Wow. And you said, I couldn't quite hear what Sherry said. Were you a Sunday school teacher?
Oh, I did Sunday school for her son. The Lord told me one day, he said, create this, whatever you see, because a lot of times we get into criticizing things that are not excellent when we're people of excellence. And when I went into this ministry, I said, wow, they don't have this, they don't have that. And God said, so go and create it. I was like, oh. So I went and I first started out doing administration, and I redid their new members program, and I taught people how to do it. And then the kids we didn't have a real children's church ministry. We didn't have anybody that was excellent at it that could go over it. So he was like, well, you go in and you teach.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, which was a great challenge for me because it meant I had to elevate my own knowledge of the word and my approach to people and all this. And this was perfecting me so that as I was perfected in these areas, then I could go right back out into the world, into the bigger platform, really, and serve in a different way, because I wasn't a person that gave music. I was a singer. Okay, so remember my little story of how I started. Actually, what I left out was that I was a classical singer. I wasn't a R&B singer really then. I was doing classical and I was doing like jazz, like I left my heart in San Francisco upon a hill it called to me, stuff like that. So what happened was, of course I was around R&B and I loved it, but I came from really being trained. So when I started my career, I didn't give the world me on stage. I was out feeling like I had to prove to people that I was a great singer. But it was all of these little experiences of up and down, serve, come out of there, deal with people really that I understood that I had to be much like you all, storytelling. So all of a sudden I said, wow, it took me going all the way through a divorce. It took me through real life situations to make me understand that what my ministry was going to be was being vulnerable and having conversations like this on stage with people and weaving the music into it so that it would inspire people and encourage them to do real life without the fantasies of perfection. It's fine struggling for excellence. Excellence and perfection were two different things. That's what I tell my son all the time. I've never called you to be perfect, but I've called you to excellence. I always say that to him. And so when I hear you all, I love this conversation. I'm so inspired because I relate to every single story,
I love what I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that was it.
No, that's so beautiful. And I love what I'm hearing just as far as even share what you said about relationships, right? Like I didn't know when I invited Sherry and Alfred and Essence and Kenny, I had no idea that there were any relationships between you. In fact, I was wondering, like, is that an unusual combination? I was at first like trying to refigure the panels. But look at God that there's all this, like, I just even remembered Essence that we did a film together.
Right.
And you guys, Kenny, just to piggyback on what he just said and the beauty of what he does on stage, Kenny, the day after my mother died, he was doing a concert in Washington, D.C., where I was. And of course, trauma that I was in just having left the hospital, losing my mother. And he was doing a concert that weekend in DC. And he said, please come. And I came and he did a special tribute to my mother. it was so healing and so beautiful, and just that oasis of hope that I needed in that moment, you know, that oasis of beauty that really blessed me. You know, it really blessed my spirit. And I just want to thank you for that, Kenny, too. And us, you know, I feel like there's so many connections here as far as serving and blessing people has a way of bringing its own joy, that we can try to work for the money and work for the success and work for the fame and all of that, and then get there and find out that that's actually fleeting. But what actually matters is what we're experiencing in these sensitive, loving, caring moments of connection. And I just wonder, just to wrap things up, if you have any advice or suggestions as far as pursuing happiness, right? For a person that maybe has been really driven as far as those other things, and maybe hasn't come to the place yet of realizing that at the end of the tunnel, it may not be exactly what it is that you're authentically looking for. What are ways that we can practice joy or practice happiness in our own lives, in our everyday lives, that is not dependent upon circumstances or situations?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because as we're sharing this with people that will see us and hear us, we are people with careers. We are people in the public eye, and we set goals, whether we realize it or not, from the time that we learned to talk and went to kindergarten and all that. So I don't want people to look at us as exceptional, or that our walk is exceptional, because we are those kind of people. I mean, we come from people who are strivers. That's why we're still here. The hope and the dream of the slave. So I don't want it to sound far off. I want to talk so that my nieces, who are grown, I think I'm as young, they're not even late 40s now, and their children, and the kids that I work with in schools that are about to be cut around the country, and people that make money, but they spend most of their money on stuff instead of saving it, and they feel like that thing calms that sort of the hyperactivity of the mind or the heart. And it's I'll just say this: anything that what money gives you, whether it's your paycheck, I'm not talking about big money, I'm talking about just the next step. The thing that money the only thing it can give you is space, and then you got to do something in that space. It gives you the luxury of not having somebody knocking on your door saying, you know what, we're going to drag your furniture out of here, or not having whatever it is, from the highest to the lowest echelon of income. It is never enough. And anything that you try to get, that you said, if I could just get, if I could just get a necklace with a little diamond on it, if I could just get a boat, if I could just get a new iPhone, there's always something to get. But the thing is, anything you can touch will never satisfy that. It has to be, that longing is a cosmic longing, is a spiritual longing. And it's expressed in many ways. It is a love longing. And we love our family, our friends, our neighbors, whoever, reflecting the principle of love that is the one principle that keeps the whole universe in sync. So that's what we're doing. And the more we reflect that and express that in our practical human ways on an everyday plane, the more that gets filled up, and the richer we get. So we're not talking about long range goals and you get there and we're just talking about this next week, why you need everybody to like what you just said or what you look like, why everybody goes like this in a picture. It's like, let's examine ourselves. So that, you know, it makes us laugh, and we just send love out to everybody who does that. But that makes you say, it's become more, it used to be just about money. If I just had this much money, I would be, no, it might give you a vacation somewhere, but when you're on that vacation and you throw that big feast, that feast has to be about fellowship. It's not about the lobsters. It's like, how was everybody laughing over the pork and beans? Was it a good fellowship? And I just, you know, so you see us kind of looking like we're on this level, discussing our goals and whether we're confident in our business we're in, but we're a factory, just like y'all work at wherever your factory is, whether your factory is playing ball, whether your factory is selling clothes, whatever it is your everydays. And so again, this is something that's been precious about this time for me, is I get to have focused prayer and meditation every day. Instead of, you know, on the freeway, okay, oh Lord, I know you got us. Okay, I know you got all my names. Okay, Lord, okay. All right, hey, everybody, I'm in the meeting. You get to, you know, talking about Madiba, the great lesson on how you spend time.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what your circumstance is, it's how you react or how you proactive in that circumstance. So I just want everybody to know stuff is good, and I like fine things. I like to look at beautiful pictures and all that. But it's constantly spiritualizing the thought about even your fabulous shoes. Where am I going in my Louboutins? Am I going to be spreading joy? It's like just constantly knowing that it's all just, it's ephemeral. And if it, and whatever it is, we got to live in the world, and it's fun to do things, but it's to keep an aspect about what is real and what is feeding. You don't look down on other things. It's like, you know, I love me some all them girls with their stuff, you know, in their things that they post all the time. I love them. And because Lord knows I got my own stuff to work on too, but I just, you know, the gift is, and I'll stop with this. This isn't nothing that I learned because my father started telling me this from the time I could understand as a little girl. I knew I was around people with money. I knew people that had dirt floors not far from my house. I knew people, well, we had a lot of creature comforts. And then there were people who my father did things for. He worked in a realm where people had like stupid wealth. And it was just that thing that the lesson he imparted from the beginning is, that's not the thing. Money gives you the ability to throw the feast. How big a feast? But it is what happens at the feast that matters. And it's whether you can feast and there are people that you know within earshot that are hungry. So anyway, so I'm going to stop there. But money is, you know, the currency is love.
The currency is love. 100%. The currency is love.
And what you love, because I tell kids when I'm mentoring that when you're getting into the arts, you're right, it can't be about the fame and the money and all of that, because when you don't have it, what does that mean? Where's the value? But if you bring happiness and you do this for nothing, you know, that you, have the attitude that you would do it for the love of it, it's more sustainable than anything else. So, I hope that people are encouraged to continue to love what they do when they go out. And I know everyone doesn't have the blessing sometimes of being in a creative art in a platform like we do. So I don't want to sound, flippant about that. But I think there's still times when take every opportunity. It's, the scripture talks about, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. It's tough to go in to a day in want, and many of us do. But that was one of the other things that I saw being in other countries that were not as financially blessed as the United States. When I was in little African countries, kids would go outside and they could find a little piece of paper flying, and they would take that piece of paper and they would play with that piece of paper. It was simple things that that they didn't take for granted, and they found joy in the relationships, like Alfred would say, in the relationships and the connection of people and the quality of what that means. And if we can find greater purpose in our art, I think that makes us happy too, knowing that what we're doing is elevating our community, it's elevating our culture, and ultimately it elevates us. Your gift makes room for you and brings you before great men, and you never know what that opportunity is going to be when you're in front of them. So if we use it to elevate, at least for me, I find joy and happiness, but I think that others can find that same kind of joy in purpose, greater purpose.
That's so beautiful.
I think, to piggyback off of Kenny and joy and happiness, I don't believe that we were given a gift just to magnify the gift. There's always a purpose underneath. I always talk about this, when you're on doing something, what's your assignment for today? What is the assignment? And it's that people don't really remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel.
Yes, Maya Angelou.
And everything I look at it is, what is my assignment, and who am I supposed to, like Essence said, who am I supposed to see? Because it's that one person. You could be on a shoot or at the bank or something, and it's that one person, and you take their hand and you look in their eyes and you see them. That makes their day. And I remember when I did the first movie I booked was Beauty Shop. And I remember Alfred Woodard, I would be under her just like, and I remember right now the way she made me feel, a girl who didn't know what the hell she was doing when they said action. The way she made me feel and the inspiration I got just sitting in her trailer and soaking up everything. Not even about acting, just about life and how to proceed in this journey of being.
I can attest to the same thing regarding you, Queen.
Yes, being of service. There you go.
That is beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for inviting us.
Oh,
Thank you, Edwina.
Oh my goodness, my heart is just so full. Like I learned so much from you all that I will be holding in my own heart and spirit. And I pray that you all were blessed by it too. And then I pray that the people that will watch this are also going to be blessed by your transparency and authenticity and the love that's in your hearts.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
I woke up this morning. As soon as I wake up, while I'm on my back, I pull my legs up, I stretch, I crack this way, that. The first thing I say is, this is God's day. Yeah. This is my favorite day.
Yes.
I have never Zoomed. I Zoomed once before, but I don't like the idea of technology. And I don't know how young people get jobs now, sending their auditions on tape. I would never get a job if I had to do that. But I was like, okay, I got to Zoom. Put on some lip gloss and some mascara and sit down. And I fidget a lot. I didn't I came, Edwina, because you were such a blessing to so many people. And I said, again, she's laying the table. You need to go to the table.
Right.
I didn't know how much I needed this companionship that we have experienced this morning. And thank you for that. And I just hope that everybody where they are in their spaces while we're self-quarantining, some of us are in safer places than others. And my heart goes out to, not just my heart, but my focused prayer goes out to people who are struggling not only for their health, but to live. I want everybody to just check out what's going on in the Bronx. It's ground zero. It's the poorest congressional district in the country. So you can imagine Kenny talking about we've been in squatter camps and refugee camps. You can't imagine what the Bronx is like right now. Yeah. And it's happening everywhere, but everybody, and I just want everybody to not fear. Fear not, fear not, fear not. Keep busy, keep figuring out how you can be of assistance while you're standing strong, bored out of your wits. But you won't be bored when you start to think about what you can be doing. And if you don't have to be present, just there's all of that to be done. But I just want everybody to know that all is well. All is well. We don't have to see it to know it and believe it and trust it. Just keep that all is well for every individual household, for all those people that live in tents that don't have houses, all over the world, for people we don't know who their cousins and babies are in, don't have protection. If we haven't discovered now our interconnectedness and that we are one world, one people expressed in different flavors, we will never learn it. This is a glorious lesson, and we have to make sure that as many people as possible are with us so they can reap the benefits of the lessons as we go forward. I'm not even apologize for that. I'm sorry, I was about to go, but just joy.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you all. I
love you guys. Thank you so much. I'm a cook for us when this is over.
I know, right? We'll all have to come to Alfred's house and have dinner and break bread.
I love you guys. Love you, Sherry. Love you, Kenny. Love you, Essence.
Love you, Kenny.
Love you, Edwina.
Thank you so much.
Love all y'all.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
for this.
Listening.
Thank you, Edwina.
Yeah, thank you, Edwina.
Stop making me cry. Oh my God.
Joyous tears, because it's possibility. Joy.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
Have a beautiful day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.